Lieutenant Marcus Hale stood at the viewport of the starship Vigilant Dawn as it slid into orbit around Vethra Prime. The planet below shimmered with silver seas and sprawling crystal cities, unlike anything he had seen in his years of service. Humanity had only been part of the Galactic Accord for 15 years, and already Marcus felt how small Earth was compared to the empires around it. But now, he had a duty that none of his kind had taken before. He was to serve as protector to an alien princess. He ran a hand over his short brown hair and adjusted the collar of his Navy uniform. The words of his commanding officer echoed in his mind. "You are not here to fight. Hale, you are here to observe, to protect, and above all, to prove that humans belong in the great halls of the stars." The docking clamps locked and the airlock hissed open. A blast of sweet, perfumed air washed over him, thick with alien scents. He straightened his back and marched into the gleaming corridor of the Vethron Palace dock. Waiting for him were soldiers like no others he had seen. Towering insectoid warriors stood with shining carapaces of emerald and bronze, each holding ceremonial spears tipped with humming plasma. Their faceted eyes regarded him with cold disinterest. Beside them floated robed scions, their veined foreheads glowing faintly, as though thought itself was a weapon. Marcus felt their stares cut into him. He knew what they saw, a human, smaller, softer, carrying only a sidearm and a reputation for being stubborn. Lieutenant Hale of Earth, one of the insectoid guards, clicked in a voice translated through a device at its throat. "You have been summoned by the royal court. Follow." Marcus nodded and stepped in line. His boots echoed against the shining crystal floor as he was led through winding halls that bent like rivers of light. Sculptures of star creatures and glowing banners stretched overhead. Every detail shouted power, wealth, and a long history of ruling among the stars. But Marcus also felt something else: judgment. Every servant, guard, and noble who caught sight of him looked twice. Some whispered. Others simply stared with the faintest curl of amusement at the corners of their mouths. To them, he was an experiment, a curiosity. Finally, the procession stopped before a massive set of doors carved from black stone. The sigil of House Vethra glowed across its surface, a phoenix rising from fire. The doors opened. Inside was the royal chamber. At the center of the vast hall, beneath a dome of starlight glass, sat the throne. The Queen of Vethra, robed in flowing silver threads, her face sharp and regal, eyes like twin sapphires hardened by rule. Around her, nobles lounged on platforms, their garments glowing faintly with shifting colors, and beside the queen stood the princess. Marcus's breath caught for a moment. Princess Illyra was unlike the others, where her people favored crystalline ornament and shining tattoos. She was dressed simply, in a gown of soft blue that shimmered like water under light. Her skin was pale with a faint violet hue, her hair long and dark, braided with silver strands. Her eyes, bright, luminescent, yet full of curiosity, locked on Marcus as if she had been waiting only for him. The queen raised a hand, silencing the murmurs in the chamber. "Human," she said, her voice ringing across the hall, low and commanding. "You stand before the throne of Vethra. You have been chosen, against the doubts of many, to serve as protector of my blood. Do you understand the weight of this duty?" Marcus bowed his head slightly, keeping his eyes steady. "Yes, Your Majesty. I will guard the princess with my life." A ripple of laughter moved through the nobles. One alien leaned close to another and whispered something Marcus could not hear, though the smirk was clear enough. The queen's gaze sharpened. "Many claim humans are reckless, that you lack discipline, that your short lives make you unstable. Tell me, why should we trust you to keep safe what is most precious to us?" The silence stretched. Marcus felt the weight of dozens of eyes on him. His instinct told him to stay humble, to avoid pride, but something in Illyra's gaze urged him to speak plainly. "Because, Majesty," Marcus said firmly, "humans don't give up. We may not have the strength of your insect warriors or the powers of your scions, but we protect what we are given, no matter the odds. That's why I'm here." For a moment the queen said nothing. Then, to Marcus's surprise, the faintest smile tugged at the corner of her lips. "We shall see." She gestured, and the princess stepped forward. "This is my daughter, Princess Illyra. She is to attend peace negotiations with the houses of Lurien and Ysera. Tensions run deep. There are whispers of blades in the shadows, of poison in the air. You will walk with her, guard her, and should she fall, your life will pay the price." Marcus met the princess's eyes again. This time he saw not just curiosity but relief. Relief that someone stood before her without fear, without awe, simply ready to do his job. "I understand," Marcus said. The queen lifted a hand. "Then it is done." Guards dismiss him. "Princess, speak with your protector before the evening meal." As the chamber emptied, Elira approached him. The nobles watched with narrowed eyes, whispering behind jeweled hands. She ignored them. When they stood close, she lowered her voice. "You are not like the others." Marcus tilted his head. "Is that a good thing?" Elira's lips curved into a faint smile. "That depends on whether you survive." For the first time since he had left Earth, Marcus felt a flicker of connection in this alien place. He wasn't just here as a symbol. He wasn't just a soldier. He was someone who had been chosen, not by the queen, not by the nobles, but by the princess herself. The halls of the Crystal Palace glittered like a maze of stars. Marcus followed closely behind Princess Elira as she moved toward the grand negotiation chamber. Her gown swept softly across the polished floor, each step measured with royal grace. Alien nobles and servants watched her pass, their eyes flicking briefly to Marcus with thin smiles or quiet whispers. He ignored them. His job was not to win their approval. His job was simple: protect her. Still, he kept his senses sharp. His training as a soldier made him notice things others missed. The odd shadow beneath an archway, the too-still servant holding a tray, the faint hum of power lines behind the walls. Every detail was a possible threat. 2 insectoid guards marched ahead of them, their spears glowing faintly with plasma. They were taller, stronger, and far more imposing than Marcus. Yet Princess Elira walked closer to him than to them. It was as if, despite the scorn of her court, she trusted the human more than her own kind. When they entered the chamber, Marcus slowed his pace. The room was vast, shaped like a dome of pure crystal. Shafts of colored light streamed down from above, painting the floor in shifting patterns. Long tables stretched across the hall, covered in golden cloth and laden with exotic fruits, meats, and cups of shimmering wine. At the far end sat the queen upon a raised platform, with her advisors fanning out beside her. To her left stood the delegation of House Lurian, tall beings with feathered crests, their robes dark and sharp. To the right sat the emissaries of House Ysera, slender, pale, with translucent skin that seemed to glow faintly from within. Marcus guided Elira to her seat near the queen's side. The nobles of both houses bowed, though their eyes lingered on the human as though he were some strange animal brought into their sacred hall. The queen raised her hand. "Let the talks begin." Servants moved among the tables, pouring wine and placing dishes. The air filled with murmurs as the delegates exchanged formal greetings. Marcus remained standing just behind Elira, his eyes sweeping the chamber again and again. At first all seemed calm, but then something tickled the back of his throat. A strange, acrid scent drifted into his nose. He coughed once quietly. His eyes watered. He glanced around. None of the others reacted. The insectoid guards stood still, their antennae twitching. The scions meditated with eyes closed. Marcus frowned. No, there was something here. Something wrong. He touched his wrist comm quietly. "Vigilant Dawn, this is Hale. I think we've got—" He stopped. His voice caught in his throat as if the air itself resisted sound. Princess Elira shifted slightly. Her eyes flicked to him. She looked calm, but Marcus noticed her breathing was shallow. Her lips parted slightly and he saw the faintest tremble in her hand. Then he understood. The air. It wasn't normal. Someone had released a toxin. Marcus's instincts roared into action. He didn't wait for confirmation, didn't wait for scanners. He reached forward, gripping Elira by the arm and pulled her to her feet. "Come with me," he barked. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Nobles turned in shock. The insectoid guards moved forward in alarm, but Marcus wasn't listening. He dragged the princess behind him, his eyes darting around the table. Candles flickered faintly along the edges of the hall. He seized one, snapping it free, and struck a flame from the wick. "Cover your face," he ordered Elira, pulling his jacket over her nose and mouth. He thrust the flame toward the floor. The faint mist in the air shimmered and ignited with a sudden burst of fire. The room erupted in screams. Delegates stumbled back. Servants dropped their trays. The flame devoured the invisible cloud, crackling and flashing in a wave that rolled across the chamber. When it cleared, the air felt different, lighter, cleaner. The burning had consumed the toxin before it could spread further. Marcus turned sharply, keeping Illyra shielded behind him. His pistol was in his hand now, drawn in one swift motion. "Stay behind me," he snapped. From the shadows of the high balcony, a figure darted. A thin shape, cloaked and fast, with a tube still leaking faint smoke. Marcus fired once, the plasma bolt slamming into the wall just inches from the assassin. The figure recoiled and vanished into the rafters before the guards could react. The chamber erupted into chaos. Nobles shouted accusations. Delegates pointed at one another. The queen stood slowly, her face carved from stone, her eyes locked on Marcus. But Princess Illyra clutched his arm tightly, her eyes wide. "He saved me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "If not for him..." The queen's gaze flicked from her daughter to Marcus. "Guards," she commanded, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "Seal the chamber. No one leaves until the traitor is found." The insectoid soldiers rushed to obey, their spears humming as the doors locked with a thunderous clang. Scions spread out, their minds probing the air, searching for thoughts of guilt. Marcus lowered his pistol, keeping himself between Illyra and the room. His heart still pounded, but his mind was calm. He had acted on instinct, and his instincts had been right. The queen descended from her throne and approached him slowly. The entire hall watched in silence. She stopped before him, her eyes cold and unreadable. "You," she said softly, "a human, the only one to sense what none of my finest could. Tell me, Lieutenant Hale, how did you know?" Marcus swallowed, his throat still raw from the toxin. "I didn't know. I just felt it. Something was off. The air burned in my throat, and when I saw the princess breathing harder, I knew it wasn't normal. I acted." The queen studied him for a long moment. Then, to Marcus's surprise, she gave a single nod. "Then perhaps the whispers are wrong. Perhaps humans are not as blind as we thought." She turned to the chamber. "Hear me. This man saved the life of my daughter. His loyalty has been tested, and he has passed." The hall filled with murmurs again, some disbelieving, some grudgingly respectful. Marcus kept his eyes on Illyra. She still held his arm tightly, her violet eyes fixed on him with something new, something that looked like trust. For the first time, Marcus felt the shift. He was no longer just a token protector, a curiosity among aliens. He had proven himself with action, not words. The palace never truly slept. Even in the silent hours of night, the crystal walls glowed faintly, humming with hidden power. Servants moved quietly through the halls. Guards stood in perfect stillness, and the air was always heavy with the weight of ancient history. Marcus Hale lay awake on the narrow bed of his assigned quarters. His uniform jacket hung neatly on the chair beside him, and his sidearm rested within easy reach. Yet sleep refused to come. His mind kept returning to the day's events, the choking air, the sudden fire, the assassin vanishing into the rafters. But most of all, he remembered the way Princess Illyra had clutched his arm. "He saved me." Those words had echoed through the chamber like a bell, words that changed the way the entire court looked at him. A knock came at his door, soft, almost hesitant. Marcus rose at once, pistol in hand, and approached carefully. "Who is it?" "It is I," a familiar voice answered softly. "Illyra," he blinked. "The princess? At this hour?" He lowered his weapon and opened the door. She stood there in a pale gown, her hair unbraided, falling freely over her shoulders. She looked younger like this, less like a royal figure and more like a woman carrying a burden too heavy for her. "I should not be here," she whispered. "But I needed to speak with you." Marcus stepped aside. "Come in, princess." She entered, her eyes flicking around the simple quarters. A single bed, a desk with a small lamp, bare walls, nothing compared to the luxuries she was used to. Yet she did not comment. She sat lightly on the edge of the bed while Marcus remained standing. "You are troubled," he said. Illyra's hands rested in her lap. "The attack today? It was not the first threat against my life, but it was the first time I truly felt the danger." She looked up at him, her glowing eyes steady. "And the first time I felt safe." Marcus hesitated. "Safe with me?" "Yes," she said simply. "You acted without fear, without hesitation. The others, they rely on scanners, on psionics, on tradition. You relied only on yourself. That is why you saved me." Her words warmed him, though he tried to keep his face calm. "It's my duty. Nothing more." Elira tilted her head, studying him. "Is it truly only duty? Or is there something else, some human part of you that makes you protect so fiercely?" Marcus thought for a moment. "On Earth we have a saying, family above all. When someone is placed in your care, you protect them as if they are your own blood. Maybe that's what you saw." Something softened in her expression. "Then perhaps I am lucky. For though I have many guards, you are the only one who makes me feel like more than a symbol." The room fell quiet. Marcus shifted uneasily. He was not used to such open words from a royal. Finally, Elira rose. "Thank you for letting me speak. I must return before anyone notices." As she moved to the door, Marcus said quietly, "Princess, whatever comes, I will not let them take you." She paused, then gave a faint smile. "I believe you, Marcus Hale." And then she was gone, leaving him alone with a heart that beat far too fast. The following days passed under heavy tension. The assassination attempt had shaken the court. Security doubled. Scions scanned every corner, and whispers filled the halls like restless birds. Delegates from Lurien and Ysera accused each other of treachery. The queen listened in silence, her face unreadable, but her eyes sharp as blades. Through it all, Marcus never left Elira's side. He walked with her during processions, stood behind her in the council chamber, and even shadowed her during private lessons with scholars. Wherever she went, the human was there, and the whispers changed. At first, nobles had mocked him. The little soldier, the pet of the court. But now they spoke in low voices, wary and uncertain. The human who saved her life, the one she trusts. Some looked at him with respect, others with envy, more with suspicion. One evening, as he accompanied Elira through the moonlit gardens, the princess glanced at him with quiet amusement. "Do you hear what they call you now?" she asked. Marcus shook his head. "I don't listen to them." "They call you the shadow of the princess," she said with a small smile. "Always at my side, always watching." "Not a bad name," Marcus admitted. She laughed softly. The sound was light, gentle, and for a moment Marcus forgot the dangers lurking in the shadows of the palace. But danger was never far. The first confrontation came not from assassins, but from within the court itself. Lord Sarath, a high noble draped in golden chains, approached Marcus during a council recess. His smile was thin, his eyes sharp. "Human," Sarath said, his voice smooth as silk. "You grow bold, too bold, walking beside the princess as if you were her equal. Do not mistake gratitude for acceptance." Marcus met his gaze without flinching. "I'm not here for acceptance. I'm here to protect her." Sarath's smile darkened. "Protect her? Or charm her? Be careful, little soldier. The court does not look kindly on outsiders who reach above their station." Marcus stepped closer, his voice low. "If you're worried about appearances, then make sure your own people stop trying to kill her. I'll handle the rest." For a moment, Sarath's face froze. Then he turned sharply and walked away, his robe snapping behind him. Elira had watched from a distance. When Marcus returned to her side, she asked softly, "Do their words not bother you?" "No," Marcus said simply. "Their words won't harm you. Their blades might. That's all I care about." Her smile returned, faint but genuine. "Then perhaps they are right. Perhaps you truly are my shadow." That night Marcus stood once more in his quarters, staring out the window at the endless stars. He knew he was becoming more than just a guard. The court saw it. The queen surely saw it, and most dangerously, the princess saw it too. Not only did she trust him, she believed in him. For Marcus Hale, soldier of Earth, it was both an honor and a burden heavier than any he had carried before, because if the whispers grew louder, if the court turned against him, if the queen decided his presence was a threat, then protecting Elira would mean not only shielding her from assassins, it would mean standing against the will of an empire. The streets of Vethra Prime glittered under twin moons as Marcus Hale escorted Princess Elira from the palace to a ceremonial banquet. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of flowering crystal vines and the faint metallic tang of the city. Alien nobles lined the streets, watching silently, their faces reflecting the soft glow of lanterns. Marcus's senses were alert. After the assassination attempt in the Grand Chamber, he knew danger could come from anywhere. Every shadow, every flicker of movement was a potential threat. The insectoid guards marched beside them, their plasma spears humming faintly. Marcus kept a hand near his weapon, ready for the smallest sign of trouble. Elira walked with elegance, her gown brushing the cobblestones, but her eyes constantly scanned the crowd. Though she was calm outwardly, Marcus sensed the tension in her posture. The night had a quiet that was almost too still. "They say the stars are alive tonight," Elira said softly, trying to break the silence. "Stars don't usually attack," Marcus replied, half smiling. She laughed softly. "You make jokes even in danger. That is human, isn't it?" "Something like that," he said, his eyes scanning the alleys ahead. Suddenly, the peaceful procession erupted into chaos. From the rooftops above, a swarm of shadowy figures dropped silently onto the street. They wore dark cloaks, their faces hidden, and their weapons glinted in the lantern light. A coordinated attack. Marcus reacted instantly. He grabbed Elira and pulled her behind him, drawing his sidearm. Sparks flew as energy bolts shot toward them, some missing by inches, others hitting the ground with explosive force. The insectoid guards advanced. But Marcus realized quickly, their rigid formation made them slow. The attackers exploited every gap, moving with a speed and cunning no machine or tradition could predict. "Move," he shouted to Elira. He grabbed her hand and darted into a narrow alley, weaving through the tight spaces. The cloaked figures pursued, but Marcus's human instincts gave him an edge. He ran not in straight lines but in curves, leading the attackers into dead ends. One figure lunged from above, swinging a plasma blade. Marcus rolled to the side, firing a precise shot that hit the attacker's weapon, sending sparks scattering. Another tried to flank them, but he kicked over a crate, tripping the assailant and sending him crashing into a wall. Elira gasped, clutching his arm, but Marcus kept moving. "Stay close," he commanded. Through winding alleys, over crystal bridges, and past flickering street lanterns, Marcus guided her with a combination of courage, quick thinking, and brute force. Every step demanded focus. Every move counted. Finally, they reached a collapsed sky bridge spanning 2 buildings. Below, the city streets stretched like rivers of light. The attackers pressed behind them, relentless. Marcus paused, holding Elira close. "We have one chance," he said, his voice low but firm. "Trust me." He scanned the area and spotted a stack of supply crates beside the bridge. With a swift motion, he kicked them over, creating a barricade. The attackers slammed into it, some falling over the edge into the city below. Others regrouped, but Marcus was already moving, pulling Elira across the bridge with surprising agility. Halfway across, a cloaked figure struck from the side. Marcus blocked the blade with his arm, grimacing at the searing energy that burned through his jacket. He swung his weapon, knocking the attacker off balance, and pushed forward, never breaking stride. Elira held on tightly, her trust absolute. For the first time, Marcus realized the weight of his duty. This was not just a mission. Her life rested entirely on his choices, his speed, and his resolve. As they neared the palace gates, Marcus saw a final wave of attackers attempting to cut them off. He didn't hesitate. Using his weapon as a battering tool, he smashed the gate's control panel, triggering a defensive barrier that rose instantly. The last attackers were thrown back, unable to follow. Panting, Marcus lowered his weapon and turned to Elira. Her face was pale, but her eyes shone with a mixture of fear and awe. You saved us," she whispered. Marcus shook his head. "No, we did it together. You stayed close. You followed every move." She smiled faintly, but Marcus could see the respect in her gaze. She trusted him more than ever. The queen awaited them in the main hall, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. Marcus helped Elira step safely inside. The insectoid guards followed, their movements stiff but orderly. The queen studied Marcus for a long moment, her eyes lingering on his uniform, his smudged jacket, and the sweat on his brow. "Lieutenant Hale," she said finally, her voice echoing across the hall. "It seems the humans are not so fragile after all." Marcus bowed slightly. "I did what was necessary, Your Majesty." The queen nodded slowly. "Yes, but your methods, unconventional. Yet effective. That is what counts." Elira stepped forward, her hand brushing against Marcus's. "You were brilliant," she said softly, though loud enough for the queen to hear. "You saved more than my life tonight. You saved my city, my people." The queen's gaze shifted between the two. She said nothing, but her silence was heavy with thought. Marcus could feel her calculating, judging, considering the implications of this human soldier who had proven himself where her finest warriors had failed. That night, Marcus returned to his quarters alone. His body ached, his muscles burned, and his mind raced. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the flashes of light, the swinging blades, the desperate leap across the sky bridge. Yet amid the exhaustion, he felt a strange sense of pride. He had faced death, not just for himself, but for someone else. And he had won. A knock came at the door, soft but deliberate. Marcus rose cautiously, expecting another test. Instead, he found Lyra standing there, her expression unreadable but her presence comforting. "You do not rest?" she asked. "I do not sleep until I know you are safe," he replied. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "I could not let the night pass without thanking you again." Marcus shook his head. "You don't need to thank me. You were brave too. You stayed calm. You trusted me." Lyra's eyes softened. "I have never trusted anyone like this before." Marcus swallowed. The weight of her words pressed against him. He had expected respect from a grateful princess, perhaps admiration from the queen, but this was different. She trusted him completely in a way that went beyond protocol, beyond duty. "You are not just a protector," she whispered. "You are my anchor, my guide through all of this chaos." Marcus felt something in his chest tighten. Duty, yes, but now also something deeper, something human and real. He knew he could never abandon her, no matter what came next. The queen's silent judgment, the court's suspicion, and the looming threats outside the palace walls. All of it faded for a moment. What mattered most was this bond, this trust. Marcus Hale had faced many dangers in his life, but none had mattered as much as the life of Princess Lyra and the trust she had placed in him. The morning sun broke over the crystalline spires of Vethra Prime, painting the city in pale gold. The streets below shimmered with life as citizens prepared for the royal ceremony that would decide the future of the princess and, indirectly, the fate of an alliance among the great houses. Inside the palace, Marcus Hale stood near the entrance of the grand hall, his posture straight, uniform immaculate despite the chaos of the previous nights. His sidearm rested at his side, and his gaze swept over the polished floors, the crystal pillars, and the assembly of nobles from every corner of the star system. It was the day of reckoning. Word had spread quickly through the court of Marcus's actions. He had protected the princess through poison, fire, and ambush. The insectoid guards respected his skill. The Scions acknowledged his instincts. But while admiration mingled with fear, suspicion remained. Some whispered that humans were too reckless, too bold. Others admitted grudging respect for his courage, and all of them awaited the queen's judgment. Princess Lyra appeared, her gown shimmering in soft lavender, her hair braided with silver threads. She walked with poise, though her violet eyes constantly found Marcus in the crowd. Their connection, forged through danger and trust, was visible to all who watched. The queen descended from her throne, a figure of quiet authority. Nobles snapped to attention as she moved to the center of the hall. Her sapphire eyes swept across the assembly, landing finally on Marcus. "You," she said, her voice commanding silence, "have walked beside my daughter through fire, through poison, through the hidden blades of traitors. You have shown loyalty, courage, and wisdom beyond your species. You have acted when others hesitated. You have proven that humans are not weak. You are not a servant. You are something more." Gasps filled the hall. Some whispered, bold words for an outsider. Others nodded, recognizing the truth. Marcus bowed, voice steady. "I only did what I was commanded, Your Majesty. I did not act for praise." The queen's gaze softened slightly. "Perhaps it is not only obedience that defines courage, Lieutenant Hale, but instinct, heart, and the will to protect what matters. You have earned your place beside my daughter. You have earned my respect." The chamber buzzed with anticipation. Marcus felt the weight of every gaze on him. He had expected acknowledgement, perhaps gratitude, but this he did not yet understand. Princess Lyra stepped forward. "Mother," she said, her voice calm but firm, "Marcus Hale is more than a protector. He is my guide, my shield, my friend. He is the one who saved my life when all others failed. I trust him completely." The queen regarded her daughter, measuring every word. Then, after a pause that seemed to stretch the entire hall, she spoke. "Then it is decided. Her voice rang out, carrying authority over every noble, every delegate, every whispering courtier. Lieutenant Marcus Hale of Earth shall no longer serve only as protector. He shall stand beside my daughter not as a guard, not as a guest, but as her husband-to-be. In this union, humanity and Vethra shall be joined, not as subjects and rulers, but as equals bound by loyalty, courage, and trust. The hall erupted. Shock, disbelief, murmurs of scandal, and cheers all mixed into a single roar. Marcus felt a heat rise to his cheeks. Princess Alira's hand found his, their fingers brushing. She smiled faintly, a soft affirmation of their shared understanding. This is incredible, Marcus said quietly, still holding her hand. Yes, Alira whispered. It is, and it is well earned. The ceremony continued, with nobles from all houses bowing or inclining their heads in acknowledgement. Some still muttered their objections, but none dared challenge the Queen's decree. Marcus felt eyes on him from every corner, weighing him, judging him, but now the judgment no longer mattered. He had earned a place among the stars, not by birthright but by action, courage, and loyalty. As the ceremony concluded, the Queen addressed Marcus directly. Lieutenant, I entrust to you not only my daughter, but the honor of my house. Know that your path will not be easy. There will be enemies who resent your presence. There will be threats both hidden and open, but I believe in you. You have proven that humans can rise to any challenge. Marcus bowed deeply. I will not fail, Your Majesty. I swear it, Alira squeezed his hand gently. And I will not let you carry this burden alone. In the days that followed, Marcus was no longer a mere visitor or soldier. He walked openly with the princess through the palace, attended council meetings, and became a symbol of human strength and ingenuity. The court still watched him warily, but the whispers had shifted. Where once there had been doubt and mockery, now there was respect. Even fear. He taught the insectoid guards new tactics, showing them how improvisation and instinct could turn the tide in battle. He collaborated with science, demonstrating that human intuition could complement their powers. Slowly, humanity's reputation in the court grew, not as weak newcomers, but as equals, capable of brilliance and courage. Princess Alira remained close. She often asked his advice, shared her thoughts, or simply walked beside him in quiet conversation. Their bond, forged in danger, deepened with every passing day. Marcus came to understand that this trust was more valuable than any medal, any recognition, any rank he had earned on Earth. One evening, as they watched the twin moons rise over the city from the palace balcony, Alira spoke softly. You have changed my life, Marcus, not just by saving me, but by showing me what it means to trust someone completely, to rely on them without fear. Marcus looked at her, the soft moonlight reflecting in her eyes. You have changed mine as well. I came here thinking I would protect you, but you've shown me what it means to stand for something greater than myself. She smiled faintly. Perhaps humans are not so fragile after all. He chuckled, remembering the Queen's first words of judgment. Apparently not, but we do make mistakes. And you will learn from them, Alira said. Together we will face whatever comes next. Humans and Vethra side by side. Months passed. The peace negotiations were successful, thanks in part to Marcus's presence. His quick thinking during earlier crises had earned the respect of the alien delegates. Where once humans had been seen as weak, they were now viewed as clever, resourceful, and worthy partners. The Queen watched quietly as her daughter and Marcus worked together. She saw his loyalty, his courage, and the bond he had built with Alira. And she saw something else, hope. Hope for the future, hope for unity among the stars, hope that humanity could rise to greatness. At a private council, she said to her advisors, humans are unpredictable, yes, but they are capable of brilliance. Lieutenant Marcus Hale has proven that. Remember this day, for it marks the beginning of a new chapter. In the quiet moments away from the court and its scrutiny, Marcus and Alira walked the palace gardens together. He taught her small human habits, how to brew tea, how to pace calmly when waiting for news. She showed him Vethra's hidden gardens, its crystal flora that glowed in soft colors under moonlight, and shared stories of her people's history, full of both wisdom and tragedy. They laughed, argued playfully, and leaned on each other. Where once he had been a soldier assigned to protect her, now he was her partner in every sense. Together they faced danger, politics, and the unknown challenges of a galaxy filled with both allies and enemies. And through it all, Marcus Hale knew one truth with certainty. Humans were not weak. Not when their hearts were strong. Not when their courage was tested. Not when they stood for something greater than themselves. He had begun as a lone soldier, a stranger among stars. Now he was something more, a husband-to-be, a protector and a symbol of humanity's potential. The galaxy watched, uncertain and wary, as human courage and loyalty shone brighter than any crystal palace or distant star.